All right, good morning, everybody. I think we'll get started now, and then we'll just have our friends join us when they do. My name is Kirsty. I wanted to welcome everybody today to our Marketing on a Budget webinar. This is part 3 of a 3-part series hosted by Lanturn and Click to View. Lanturn is a modern corporate and fund services company helping business owners and asset managers scale their businesses and portfolios. And Click to View is one of Singapore's leading content creation agencies. So we're very excited. Today we have Crystal from Grow Public Relations, and we have Krista joining us from Click to View to kind of discuss and share their insight on how you can still have a very scalable marketing strategy when you're on a budget. And I think this is especially important for a lot of small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs. We get tons of questions around this topic. So we're just really happy to host a panel on it. So before we begin, I'd just like to hand over the mic to each of our guests to just give a little bit of an introduction about themselves and who they are. Crystal, would you like to start first? Share with us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal. So I'm the founder and CEO of Grow Public Relations. So Grow Public Relations, we are a boutique team based in Singapore. We also have operations in Malaysia and the Philippines. So we work mainly with a lot of angel-backed and venture-backed startups and SMEs to get them in the media, to increase their awareness and credibility, either because they're trying to get the attention of investors, customers, or various partners in their business. Yeah. That's Grow PR.
Thank you. And Krista, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Krista, and I'm a digital content director at Click to View. We are based in Singapore, and we also have presence in Dubai, Australia, Jakarta, and most recently, Istanbul. We work mainly with clients in the tech space, and yeah, I guess I'm really excited for today's webinar.
Thank you, Krista. So I will just start the conversation. And for the audience, so the format of today, we have quite a few questions to kind of get through. And that will be the first portion of the panel. And then we'll leave about 15 to 20 minutes for questions. So if you do have questions, there is a little Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom window. So you can just type that in, and then we'll make sure we'll get to them today. Okay, just answer them anytime, and then we'll find time to answer them at the end of the panel. So first question for today is, businesses with small marketing teams and budgets have to be extra creative on their marketing strategies to ensure that they get the most out of their investment. I mean, us at Lanturn, the marketing team, we started as 2 people, and now we're at 15. But in the beginning, we basically had no money to spend. Do you guys have any advice on how to approach building out a lean but effective marketing strategy? I'll start with you, Crystal. How about you take the floor first?
Yeah, so I think we work a lot with startups and SMEs, right? And they come at different stages of their business. Some of them are super early stage where they're just building their prototype. And some of them have really a good offer validation. They have like a great number of customers. So a lot of the clients that we work with, they come from different stages in their business. When we talk about being on a budget and we talk about working with small businesses, a lot of times the PR strategy for corporates involve very long retainers. Like it could be like a 1+1, it could be a 2-3 year kind of retainer, where it's the same agency that sees them through on a monthly basis, working out strategies and pushing out stories for them. When we talk about PR strategies from a very lean perspective, what we do is we do a lot more like campaign-based, tactical, outcome-driven kind of work. So for example, for startups, SMEs, or like companies with a smaller budget, right? We always encourage them to be very clear and certain on the outcomes for a campaign. Then we take on that role, and it's a lot more tactical. I don't know if the answer is a question, but happy to take on follow-up questions as well.
And then would you say that, do a lot of then clients come in and go, they already know kind of what outcome they want to achieve? Because I think also for young businesses, maybe they just go, oh, you mean I just want to get out there, right? Like, or I want to drive revenue, which is the most kind of obvious answer, right? But that's quite a big ask, right? So how do you kind of guide them in a way to really figure out like what are more specific outcomes you want to achieve that make sense for like a lean budget, for example?
Yeah, I think it would be a very ideal world where clients come to us knowing exactly what they want, but most of the times they don't. And how we guide them towards working on a very specific outcome, or like getting to understand the problem is by asking a lot of questions that is beyond just a very PR and marketing level, but it goes a lot deeper into their operations. It goes a lot deeper into what are the problems that they are facing with their customers, what are the problems that they are facing in trying to get investors' attention. So we are really hoping to use PR as that tool to resolve certain communications issues. And I can give some examples for that, right? Let's say if a company is at a point where they're looking to get investments in, the kind of angles that we approach would be quite different. We would try to do like funding announcements of the previous rounds that they have raised. It would do a lot more profiling of the leadership team, the founders, so that it would be able to generate more eyeballs on who are the people leading the company, and that's what gets investors' attention a lot more. But when we talk about trying to get more like consumers in from like a B2C kind of angle, then it is a lot more focused on like the product or services, and like communicating the differentiation. Yeah, so those are just some examples.
Krista, do you have anything to kind of add to that on how businesses can be extra creative on their marketing strategies if they're kind of forced to work on a lean budget?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are actually a lot of different creative aspects that one could implement in their strategies. I think at the first and foremost, I look at it when when you don't have a budget to utilize, or a big budget rather to utilize, you could really start off with like a good elevator pitch, right? And that's like something that you can deliver to anybody that's listening. And this could literally be anywhere. It could be like at a family barbecue, friend's wedding, traveling, and that way you could always be marketing your business. Yeah, and I guess the most effective way to do this is by a compelling elevator pitch. That's one of the creative ways that I look at it. I look at marketing a business with no budget. And with an elevator pitch, I guess you essentially only have like 90 seconds if you're lucky. And for impact, you need to do this very persuasively, right? You need to make your point persuasively. Facts and figures are super important, but you must present this in a manner that generates expertise and confidence. So you can do that by, knowing what motivates your audience. You can incorporate social proof. You can tell a story, that shows your expertise and maybe how you're qualified to solve your audience's problem. And you could also like anticipate some questions that they might ask you, like, what's your competitive advantage? So when somebody asks me, what is a creative way, I always start off with, treat this as an elevator pitch.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, if I can add to that, in my previous life before Lanturn, I actually kind of started my own really small bakery. And although it is not B2B, right? It's the same concept as like I really had no money to like market the business. And it was like me and my business partner, and we were just baking cookies out of like a little kitchen. And yeah, I think what really helped us is we literally, that's all we talked about for like 6 months. Like we went everywhere, every social event. Like we just like, what are you guys up to now? We're like, well, let me tell you, like we started a cookie business and yada, yada, yada. And actually, lo and behold, like a lot of people were like, oh, that's super cool. Like I have a corporate event coming up. Let me order some cookies. Like, do you have a card? Do you have a website? So honestly, like your mouth is like your best channel, really, is if you're starting out, you're a small business owner, whether it is whether you're developing a product, an app, whether it's cookies, whatever, right? you just have to kind of get out there and like talk about it, right? So I totally agree. It's just talking about it all the time, and that's a free way to kind of market your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding on to that, like for a lot of companies where like the budget is really a real limitation, then we always encourage like these companies to focus more on like, you know, their sales, their numbers, and ensuring that the business is doing well before like going too much into like marketing and even PR. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think also just like going back to your point about your mouth as being your best channel, it's just really about like getting involved in like, you know, aspects like community. You could like, you know, sponsor a 5K charity. You could even just go on LinkedIn, connect with people, go connect with people through like email, you know, in person, or even like at the bottom of your invoices. I know a friend who, you know, put at the bottom of their invoices like get 50% off if you refer us to somebody, and it worked, you know. So there are very different creative ways that you could go about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think often people just associate marketing as very just like social media posts or like buying ads, you know, or like press releases, newspaper articles. Like, so there's actually, I mean, everything that you do to promote your business in a way is some sort of marketing, right? So that's why it's like you just got to think creatively about what you can do to kind of reach a wider audience. So this segues into a little bit into my next question. So people say they have, yeah, I have no marketing budget. A very typical response would be, okay, well, you know, if you're online, you can focus on organic growth, like organic SEO growth, or you can create content and just let it grow organically. And eventually it should bring you in some business without you having to spend any money, for example, on ads. Do you guys have any suggestion on how you can set your business up for scalable organic growth? Krista, I'll let you take this on first.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Did you say
Krista, sorry.
Crystal or Chris?
Oh,
I said Krista.
Our names are so similar.
I
I
know,
know.
right?
Krista.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to start, the first and foremost thing that has to absolutely be a focus is you really need to define your business strategy, right? No matter how small or no matter how big your budget is, because you can't really make an effective marketing strategy if you don't know where your business is going, right? So if your goals aren't clear, I'd say get back to the drawing board, take a step back, work with your team and identify those goals, and then actually create an action plan or a marketing strategy. That's really, really the first step that I would say. And then in terms of organic growth, I think there are three key elements, right, to building a effective marketing strategy. First, I would say quick and inexpensive prototypes that you can use to test out market assumptions. And then the second one would be feedback from real customers. And then the third would be learning fast. Right. So going back to the first point, which was testing out your marketing ideas, do that in small batches. So instead of starting with like this big strategic marketing plan and investing like a huge portion of your marketing budget on one or two initiatives, you should ideally break your budget into smaller pieces that you can use to test out various marketing ideas. This way, by trying out different tactics, you could get a better sense of where your customers are, how they are responding to your marketing messages, and how they like your products and services, right? And then once you start excluding things that don't work after a period of time of testing, then you can focus more of your energy and budget on the marketing channels that are effective to your company, right? And then back to my second point, which is listening to your customers. This is very, very important. It's crucial. You could maximize social media. You could build a community. You could support them, leverage them. But one important thing that I would like to mention is it's so important to market with the community instead of to the community, right? And I see this happen very often because companies really rarely engage with in dialogue with their customers. So I feel like this is there's a lot of missed opportunities there to learn and improve. And the third element that I mentioned was, learning fast, right? Focus on learning and not the failure. I think the goal here is to learn as much as possible about your marketing options and spend as little money and energy as possible to gain that knowledge, to obviously to improve, to adjust, to refocus, and to find marketing channels that work. Yeah, so that would be the three key elements that I would start with.
Crystal, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I really like Krisha's point about experimentation and like not beating yourself up too much. I think in a lot of the companies that we work with, it is such lean teams in which they run their entire marketing, PR, even sales function combined into one, right? And I've seen these people get really creative and really get their hands dirty by experimenting, by having to take on learning a totally new skill set. Yeah, and achieve great results as well. So I think that that's a really good point, Krisha. Yeah.
If I can add a tip that's probably a little bit more specific, but also very applicable, especially if you are a business that operates a website or online, is start your SEO process early. I think there's a lot of companies and my own included where we started the website, we started doing all this content and we're like, let's just write content, right? But we didn't think, okay, well, what is really the overall SEO strategy and how are we going to make sure that we're going to rank organically over time? Because SEO is such a compounded effort that the earlier you think about it, the more fruitful it will be. So that's kind of like my major tip around organic growth is really, even if you're not investing on an SEO specialist or investing anybody into working on SEO, know the basics and make sure that you kind of set up the right foundation for it so that it grows over time. That's just a little bit more of a granular tip. But yes, thanks, ladies. That was really, really helpful. And I think for the next question, I'll bring it back to kind of more current events. So obviously, the economic state right now is not ideal. We're going into a little bit of a recession. Inflation's going kind of nuts. Interest rates are going up. Businesses and investors are obviously being extra cautious on how they spend their money and where they invest their money. And they're kind of reducing spend where they can. And of course, typically marketing is usually kind of one of the first things to go, or we just have to be a little more strategic about. So how do you think teams can structure their marketing strategy to be recession proof? I mean, I think Krista, you kind of covered a little bit about that, about breaking your strategy into small bits so that you're not spending too much at once. But do you have anything else to add to that?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Krista.
Krista, okay.
I think that's going to happen a few more times, I'm sure.
I'll be a little more clear.
Sure. No, that's okay. Yeah, I think I can add to that. In terms of like a recession-proof marketing strategy, the way that I would go about it would be that the first step is to, of course, gather as much market research, as possible. This could be customer surveys, it could be various methods, but the whole point here is to understand how customers and their needs may be evolving during a recession, right? And then this data will really help the marketer prepare the strategy, right? Not only that, but like the brand positioning and messaging to meet the customers where they're at in this period of recession. I think the next step would be auditing, right? I would audit everything. I would do a website audit. I would audit digital channels. I would audit tracking, analytics, historical data. And this would literally be done to understand where the strengths are, where the opportunities are, and where improvements can be made. And then once I have that data from customers and insights about my performance, then I would use that information and then put together a recession-proof marketing strategy. And what these components may include, it could be, building, optimizing my existing website, like you said, leveraging SEO for free organic traffic. So that's one thing that I would do. Another thing I would do would maybe building upon my existing email capabilities and maybe even implementing automation on my platform. Another thing could be building, moving our marketing initiatives or marketing muscle in-house. Bringing things in-house would be a cost-effective way for a recession period as well. And then another thing I think that's very important would be optimizing Google Ads to reduce overspending. And what that means is that I would make sure that certain negative keywords were not showing up for on Google. And I think the last one I would highlight would be to trim excess social media and really focus on where it matters, because I feel like a lot of times we put in so much effort, energy, and focus on social media that it just blows up. It just becomes bigger than it actually needs to be. So I would step back and I would trim the excess of where we're advertising on social media. Yep.
Crystal, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got the crystal part now. I need to
Yeah.
look closely to it. So I know it's me. I think we always think of recession as something bad, but I do think that it presents a lot of opportunities as well. And businesses that are able to leverage and sort of like tweak their strategies or be able to identify certain problems that they can solve during this period, that is what is going to take them to the next level. And that's going to be what separates and defines a business. And for us, as very marketing PR people, we often don't look at the impact of what we do, or we see marketing and sales and like the finances part as very separate functions. And for myself, running Grow PR as a business, having to really be able to look at all of these pieces and realize that a lot of what we do in marketing or PR, it is really to drive sales, as much as we don't like to say that. I think being very cognizant of the fact that what we are doing as or like our business functions are doing well, or like are innovating and experimenting and finding what works, and then using marketing PR as like the strategy to sort of drive that growth. I think those are important things to me if I were to look at it from like a startup SME perspective during the recession.
Yeah, I think to add to Crystal's point, something we've been doing is we now kind of have at Lanturn, we have an integrated marketing and growth team. And what we're doing is we're really heavily investing in tracking a lot of just the leads coming through, what channels and how marketing and growth has an impact on that. And when you have all that data in one place and it's accessible and it's easy for all the stakeholders to see, you can use it as evidence to kind of make a case for why marketing needs to stay, or marketing needs to grow, or we need to keep doing these things, because you can't fight numbers, right? So as long as you and unfortunately on the other flip side, if the numbers are down, then it's like obvious, but the good thing is you have that kind of tracker to make everybody accountable and to kind of argue for a case, to kind of keep the marketing team or keep the budget if you can kind of prove it, right? So definitely make sure you're kind of tracking all your numbers, make sure that all the stakeholders are involved and they kind of understand the different functions of the team and what channels you guys are putting effort into.
Yeah, and thank you, Christy, for mentioning numbers, because you reminded me to text my business development team member about the numbers for last month. So thank you for that. I think that when we talk about tracking numbers, it is also important for us to be able to track numbers that tell a story and numbers that actually can help us make decisions, because when we talk about numbers, when you talk about like cost per lead and all and impressions and all that, there are so many numbers that we can pull in here and there, and often it confuses us rather than helps us make make decisions. So it is really important, building on that, to be able to pull out the numbers that help us come to that decision, whether it is to spend more on a certain marketing strategy, or to, you know, double down on your conversions when it comes to sales. So I think numbers that drive decision making is very, very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Krista, anything to add to that, or you good?
No, I think you both made, excellent points. I think it's so important to look at your performance. And I think it's also important to kind of look back and just to make sure, like, have I really implemented every possible efficiency, like optimization, like what you guys mentioned earlier. Still, it's super important. And sometimes we just skip over that step. We're like, okay, we finished our budget. We need more money. So I think what you guys mentioned earlier, that covers what I wanted to mention as well.
And we may have sort of answered the next question, but I'm just going to throw it out there in case we want to add anything. So on the flip side of reducing budget and thinking of ways where we can cut cost, what do you think are some areas that brands really absolutely shouldn't compromise on when it comes to kind of marketing and growth? Krista, did you want to start?
Yeah,
with that?
sure. Yeah, so definitely never compromise on like vision and strategy. What I mean by that is like you need to be able to change strategies when needed, right? It's not just this is the plan and this is how the plan is always going to be. The reluctancy to change strategies is a serious mistake, in my opinion. And you also need to have like a backup plan, right? In case something goes wrong. Yeah, something may not work out, and then you need to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, right? And this not only like reduces the risk of failure, but it's also easier to adapt to like changing marketing trends, customer expectations, or like market conditions, right? And the pandemic is like a great pinpoint to what I'm discussing right now. In times of change, it's so important to be flexible in your approach to marketing, and that I feel like will make it more effective, and it will enable like better profiling of the messages that you want to put across, or even like long-term planning, right? So I think quick adaptation to difficult conditions will really allow you to keep your positions in the market. That's the first thing that I would say that you shouldn't compromise on. And the second thing I'll just touch on briefly is like not specifying your target audience. I think this is something that is very, very important, right? Because if you think your product is for everyone, then you're making like a massive marketing mistake. Your target group, of course, should be precisely defined, right? And you need to know who your customers are. You have to know whether your offer is like for everyday Joe, or for like a specialist, or an expertise, or an expert in like any given industry. And of course, trickling off that, each group has its own like interests, preferences, languages, websites that they visit, places that they like to go to. And it's really important to remember that. And personalization is so important, because that's like the core of today's marketing. Because I think we've all seen like a decline, and we know that general ads just don't work any longer because they don't focus on like a specific target audience, right? So personalized ads is something that, marketers should definitely not compromise on. It's something that will benefit in the long run. And then another thing that marketers should not compromising on is something that we touched on earlier, which is not monitoring and analyzing performance. It's extremely important in marketing, right? Use tools like Google Analytics, and you can analyze your progress, or even like peek at your competitors. And then you can make sure, by doing that, you can make sure that everything is like going according to plan and results are satisfactory, and you can even have the opportunity to make changes down the line. I think, those would be three things that I would definitely not compromise on. Oh, and actually one more thing, which is one of my biggest pet peeves is bad websites. I think it's so important to have a good website, and it's highly recommended to invest in good, user experience, user interface, and yeah, well-designed website. I think there is nothing more like, I guess, like a turn off when you're interested, you're down the sales funnel and you're interested in a company. You go onto their website and it's terrible. You'll just immediately hit that X button and you're no longer a customer. So yeah, so those are the 4 things that I would not compromise on.
And your site needs to definitely be mobile friendly. Like, I mean, that sounds crazy, right? In 2022, but you would be surprised the number of websites that I've been on where it's just like a horrible mobile experience. So yeah, people get that website on the mobile. Krista, anything to add to Krista's points?
Mm. Chrissy, could you remind me what was the question again?
Oh, sorry. Basically, anything that teams or brands should not compromise when it comes to marketing. Yeah. Maybe you can come from a PR approach, or perhaps you know, how a lot of businesses actually kind of treat PR as like, when we have more money, we'll do it, right? Or it's not something that kind of happens very early stage. Like, do you have some insight on that, or any advice to kind of start PR early and not kind of compromise on that? Yeah, on that side.
Yeah. So I think from a PR perspective, like I mentioned earlier, definitely shorter term, more tactical campaigns are what is going to help like businesses with smaller budgets. And I also do think that, you know, really defining like Krista mentioned, the target audience, the problems, to see when is the right time for PR, because it really depends on the business as well. If we talk about maybe things that we should not compromise on, perhaps it is picking the wrong partners to work with when it comes to marketing, or sort of jumping into maybe certain rush decisions that may not make the most sense for the brand. And while, you know, in this whole notion of cutting costs, maybe it's best not to embark on certain things than to do it and then not have that ideal result. I don't know if that is too big, but yeah.
Do you have any advice on kind of doing PR yourself first and then eventually engaging an agency? Because I think, there are a lot of businesses who think, okay, maybe I can try to do this myself first, and it could be possible. But do you have any insight on that?
Yes, in fact, I think it's very, very possible. I have met various founders who have actually studied it on their own, and they have done it. It is not rocket science. It is very tedious to do PR on your own by, like, you know, having to come up with all the list of editors, writing like a lot of different pitches to get them excited. It is not rocket science, but it is very tedious work. But it definitely can be done. It definitely can be done. And this is what we actually have been trying to push as well for a lot of startups that are in their very early stages. Right. It can be intimidating to invest like a 5-figure sum, even if it's a lower five-figure sum into something like PR, where you don't really know what you're going to get. But in the past year, we have actually tried to push out a lot of like DIY coaching kind of programs for startups who are looking at exploring PR on their own. Somehow the reception hasn't been too good. I think that PR is still seen as maybe something that people pursue if all things go well, and also a lot of, I think, marketing or comms teams within the startups, they have this fear of writing. So it can be quite tedious, and while I think it's a great idea, it seems to be something that the market is still intimidated by.
Because I think with PR, it's a lot of it's relationship building, right? And if I were to write a press release for my cookie business, but I don't know any of the writers in the food blogs or the media outlets that have the food section, like for me, I'd be like, I don't know where to start, right? So I totally get it. And I think, like you mentioned, you can still spend small amounts of money on PR if you find kind of creative ways to do it. And I mean, agencies like yours are here to kind of work within a client's budget and requirements. So that's a great thing. And so we have 2 more questions. And so I'm urging the audience, if you guys have anything else you want to ask, now is kind of the time to throw some questions in. We have 2 very, very experienced ladies on the panel today that can give you some really good insider tips if you have any questions. So feel free to throw them into the Q&A section. So next question here is, do you guys have any advice on how marketers or teams can kind of guard or defend their budget and convince leadership and investors that marketing matters even during difficult times? And I think we talked about this. We talked about the tracking and the spreadsheet and all of that. Do you guys have anything else to possibly add? Krista, do you want to jump
Yeah,
in?
I think I'm just going to re-highlight what one of I think Crystal said this earlier. It's just about letting the numbers speak for themselves. I think showing up to your going to your boss or going to your investor, be like, here are the numbers, here's the return on investment. I think that's the best way to show them that marketing actually works. So that's what I would do. Yeah.
Crystal, anything on your end?
Yeah, I think convincing, like it goes back to that numbers and justification. Definitely. And I think if there are results of the business, naturally the management will push for it themselves, versus us having to convince them.
Yeah, and I guess speaking from my experience, it took us a while, but we were tracking everything from the moon and back, right? Like every kind of number. And then at some point we had to go, okay, but what really are the key metrics that are relevant to what marketing is doing specifically? And for every business, every team, it's a little bit different. For us, we kind of narrowed it down to looking at basically how many leads are getting converted into SQL, so sales qualified leads, on a weekly, monthly, and then quarterly basis. So we've been basically tracking that lead to SQL conversion rate like meticulously, and then also looking at the overall number of SQLs. And that has actually really, really helped us just focus our efforts into bumping that number up. And that doesn't necessarily just mean, oh, like let's spend money on ad campaigns that are going to help us drive more SQLs. It's actually going, okay, well, we have all these different channels that bring in leads. How do we just effectively create a better qualifying process so that we're qualifying leads to SQLs at like very early on in the funnel? Like we're basically getting potential leads that qualify right away. So we've been looking at that really closely, and I think that's really helped bring the conversion rate up and the numbers up. So yeah, back to that point, it's just really focusing on a few key metrics that are really important for your business, whatever that may be, and then ensuring that that's being tracked on a regular basis. Okay, so we have one last question, and this one is pretty much about just paid ad spend. So overall, across the board, I think, I mean, there's reasons why there's some layoffs, unfortunately, at these places, but advertising spend across all platforms, Google, Meta, LinkedIn, has just gone down. So brands in general are spending less on ads because it's maybe not as effective as they thought it'd be, or they have to cut their budget. Crystal, what are your thoughts on investing into ads at this point or at any stage of the business? Just kind of your opinion, your insight, any ideas?
Yeah, I think it differs, right, across B2B and also B2C, the kind of ads that we spend on stuff like that. For Grow PR, actually, we were doing quite a bit of ads from the start of this year all the way, and it has given us an explosion of leads, to be very honest. We had to pause ads just because we could not cope capacity-wise with the leads coming in. I think spending on leads, like we had this discussion earlier, Christy, something that we do have to do to continue working on. It's only going to get more expensive. So when speaking with various, I think, marketing partners, what I've been hearing is to find creative ways to lower the ad spend through the different offers that we can create, whether it is like a lower ticket offer, whether it is like webinars, ebooks that we can bring people in. And I'm speaking more from like a B2B perspective, right? So continuing to bring that lead in. And I think what is often not spoken about is the conversion of the leads. We always talk about ads to bring like customers in and all that, but the conversion bit is really, really important, and making sure that these are qualified leads that actually like convert into customers, and the lifetime value of customer. Those are things that we really should bring into the conversation as well, to really determine whether this is something, this is a strategy that's worth pursuing.
Krista, anything to add on your end?
Yeah, we have been consistently advertising online despite the advertising spends on platforms going down. And what I have seen is I have seen an uptick in performance. I don't see performance going down. I don't see it slowing down. So based on the experience that I have had personally, I would keep it very simple. I think advertising online is still one of the best options out there to reach your target audience. That's what I would say.
Like for Lanturn, I mean, we've done the whole process of running lots of different campaigns targeted for, because we have a number of different services as well. And for us, I think the key learning is some services it just doesn't make sense to advertise. So you really have to understand what you have to offer. And again, back to the whole know your audience spiel, it's about understanding how your audience makes purchase decisions. So I'll just give kind of a very basic example from our end. So we offer payroll, accounting, immigration services, but we also offer fund services, which is in summary, it's the annual contract for fund services is quite large, right? So for us, we've kind of realized that set of services, most likely you're not going to really kind of make a huge purchasing decision by going on Facebook and seeing some sort of ad, or maybe even doing a Google search. The kind of sales cycle for that type of client is just a really, really long time. And yes, you might want to run a search campaign for it, but you have to have that expectation that it's very likely that even if they land on one of your search ads, they might not fill out a contact form yet. They might go, oh, okay, yeah, these guys do what they do. And then eventually they'll come into contact with you later on at some point, maybe. And then it'll take 6 months to convert them. So that's when you realize you're like, okay, if I have a limited budget, is that really a battle that I want to fight? Is that where I want to put my money in? Or should I put it into like immigration, where somebody knows they need the service? They're just trying to find somebody to do their visa for them, and like they can do that right away. It costs a couple $100. Why not, right? So it's really understanding your product, and then understanding your audience, and then understanding the sales cycle and how long it takes for them to really close, for you to then think about how you want to invest in advertising. So that's kind of my insight on it. So we don't have any questions. Very quiet audience. I guess we were very, very helpful. But maybe kind of the last thing we could talk about is, ladies, if you guys could just kind of share maybe recent client projects that you've worked on, or you've worked with clients who kind of fit into that category where, they want to do marketing, they just have really little budget. What was kind of the case, and how did you guys kind of tackle that? Crystal, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah. So I think some examples I would say. I think apart from like having, sometimes there is like a longer conversion process for like startups, for them to be ready for PR. From being educated to being ready for PR, it's entirely different things. Also, another thing would be for campaigns, we usually minimally do like a 3 to 6 month kind of campaign for clients. But there are cases where maybe a 3 month campaign is just really out of their budget at that point. So what we do then is that we work on trying to give them like a short, quick burst out into the media. So we make certain announcements like the launch of an app or the launch of certain like products and services. And this is usually done through like a press release where we share it with really audiences that matter to them. Yeah, so those are some instances in which we have tried to be a little bit more focused on what the media wants and finding that balance on what they can share so that it could be a quick win. And we also have to be very careful with vetting the announcement to make sure that it's going to give them results, right? Because if it's going to be like a very an announcement on something that no one really cares about, then it's not going to be picked up by the media. Yeah, so we do have to look at it that way. And another thing is that for some startups, they do try to be a bit more like occasion specific. So for example, Chinese New Year is coming up, or like maybe like later on, like as Valentine's Day, as Mother's Day comes up, then they would try to leverage on these occasions to do something around it and try to get themselves out in the media a little bit more. So it's more like yeah, goes back to being tactical, I think. Yeah.
Krista, any insight from your point of view?
Yeah, I think both of you raised some really good points. Crystal, with your occasion-specific marketing strategies is something that we have done recently with a client in the distribution sector. And what we had to do was we had to tell them right at the start that, listen, with your product, you would be best to advertise at these specific periods. And when we implemented those strategies, yeah, it worked, right? Because it was so specific to a certain type of target audience in a specific time frame that was the best way to go about it. And bringing it back to your point, Kirsty, about marketing, it really depends on the type of product. Again, like it's not a one size fit all. That's also something that we experienced with a client in the banking sector. They were very much after quality leads off LinkedIn, and it was very difficult to get them the actual leads that they were after because it was such a specific niche that they were interested in. So yeah, I think it really depends on on the product and the service, and again, the key metrics that they're after. So with the banking client that we had, the leads that they wanted was not something that we could get from online advertisement. So we had to tell them that, no, this is not possible. So we had to go to different channels to try and get the leads. So what we did was we used native advertising, and that's something that worked better than using your social media platforms. Yeah.
Actually, that segues into one of our Q&A questions. Do you guys have any advice on cost-effective channels for advertising? It adds up, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it can ever be as cheap. Word of mouth.
Doing it yourself is the
Yeah.
best way, cheapest way, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Krista, did you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I think it also depends on the content that you have, the asset that you have. YouTube is the most cost effective for video content. You could get away with cost per view of 0.001 of a cent. And that's for regions in like Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, various regions in Southeast Asia. You could get away with very cheap advertising with video content. And then if you have like an image that you would like to use as the asset or carousels, then the next option would be Facebook, another very cost-effective channel. You could get away with 0.15 cents per click, which is very, very cheap. And another channel that you could utilize would be Twitter. That's also another cost-effective platform. And off the top of my mind, I think, yeah, those are the three that I would definitely start off with. And then if those avenues are not the are not feasible for you, then I would suggest using native advertising, which means just advertising on the open web, and you could get away with maybe 45 cents per click, which is not bad either.
Crystal, anything on your side?
Yeah, I think I agree with Krisha's points. Nothing else to add on my side.
Okay. Well, we don't have any more questions, and we're almost at 12 p.m. So I think we'll kind of wrap it up today. We'll be sending out an email to all the attendees and registrants with a video of this if you guys wanted to rewatch and take any notes. I wanted to take this time to thank Crystal and Krista for taking time of their really busy schedule to join us in this webinar. I think it was really helpful. We had some pretty good tips. So yeah, thank you, ladies, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.